And good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 26th day of July 2022. And hi, welcome to this wonderful day today, 12 degrees and mostly sunny, but it is a little bit cloudy out there right at this point in time, but the outlook is for mostly sunny. Well, today we're going to be looking at our daily India report and the functions and events, but first off, we'll go to our news. And news in brief, first of all, World Health Organization declares that the monkeypox is a global health emergency. That's what it is at the moment. So let's take a look at that report.
Welcome to my apartment in New York. A little dark out, so I have all the lights on.
2.5 years into the COVID pandemic, many of us are familiar with the pain and boredom of self-isolation.
And a lot of time on that couch, which is covered right now, so that I don't contaminate the couch.
But Mark Hall is stuck at home thanks to another infectious disease.
I was diagnosed with monkeypox. It looked like an ingrown hair. I really didn't think anything of it. A couple days later, there were two more in that same area, and I looked at them and I was like, wow, this is a little bit strange. I think that this might be monkeypox.
Those 3 spots multiplied and were then joined by a cracking headache and fever.
I know that I have to urinate, and I'm anticipating that, and I'm like crying going on the way to the bathroom. It was like so painful.
In early May, a cluster of cases emerged in the United Kingdom. Since then, the virus has infected more than 16,000 people in over 70 countries.
Monkeypox is part of a large family of viruses. They are DNA viruses. They're related to smallpox, which is probably the most well-known virus. These viruses have been around for a very long time. We know of human diseases caused by monkeypox since the 1970s.
Associate Professor Faseli Coulibaly is surprised by how quickly it spread.
It is spreading more than we have anticipated, more than we've seen before, but there's kind of good hope from what we know of smallpox that we can have strategies to eradicate it. We have eradicated smallpox. It may take time, and obviously binding very tightly to its target.
Monkeypox spreads mainly through skin-to-skin contact or touching contaminated objects, and occasionally through breathing in droplets from an infected person. Associate Professor Coulibaly says while people should be on the lookout for symptoms, there's no reason to be alarmed.
Monkeypox has had a case fatality ratio of about 1%. What we're seeing here, and that's good news, I guess, is that it's much lower than this. Currently, the disease seems to be quite mild and doesn't cause deaths in the vast majority of the cases.
There you go, monkeypox, something to look out for. Well, what is happening with COVID hospitalisation right here in Australia?
The Premier back from leave.
Hello, how are you?
As children go back to school.
Did you do it at the castle? Don't do that. Oh, sorry, I don't know about the castle.
Peter Malinauskas knocking down suggestions from some experts to reinstate mask mandates to curb the latest COVID wave.
That's not something we want to race back to. We're at a different phase of the pandemic now. We do place a high value on national consistency, and there's no state in the country that's reintroducing mask mandates.
Masks are strongly recommended for students 8 years and over as they return for term 3.
I think they're pretty used to it, actually. They've become quite accustomed to it. So I think, kids are more likely to do the right thing than adults.
People are sensible enough, they'll think about it. And those people that don't want to wear one, you can mandate, and they're not going to do it anyway.
The number of new cases remains steady above 3,300, but 384 patients are currently being treated in hospital, a new record, and a further 19 deaths have been recorded, some dating back to February. The opposition criticising the time taken to free up hospital capacity by moving more than 100 patients with disability into the community.
The government has constantly been looking at this NDIS lever as a way to alleviate the pressure on our health system, and yet we're seeing so much talk and not enough action here.
What we're focused on, what does the health system need and what can we get to it as quickly as possible? Hence the extra 200 beds, Hence the answer to more nurses, more doctors, more ambulance officers that are all being recruited as we speak.
The government also close to recruiting a Royal Commissioner to spearhead a promised inquiry into education with a focus on early learning.
It is a big task. It will be some nation-leading work.
The inquiry is expected to start in summer once the appointment is revealed in spring. Rory McLaren.
There you go, the case is there, and of course the Royal Commission in the report, it is quite a time-consuming exercise, but what did he do? These things really need to be done. Well, right now we'll go and look at that case of that truck flowering through. So what was there to be blamed? How did that happen?
An all too familiar clean-up at Adelaide's most notorious intersection. A truck spewing smoke flies down the southeastern freeway, crashing into multiple cars and a bus. 9 people were hurt. Emergency services astonished to find most had only minor injuries.
It's absolutely miraculous that nobody was seriously injured or killed in that collision, particularly if you look at the scene. It's a miracle.
A miracle Barb Stewart barely remembers. She had to be cut from her car after the incident.
I heard a bang and then I saw a truck coming for me, and then I don't remember anything more for quite a while.
Even more remarkably, she survived a similar crash which killed 2 people in the same spot 8 years ago.
I would avoid it, go around the long way to get onto Portrush Road, but I think maybe I'll never go on that road again.
Police are yet to question the 60-year-old Queensland truck driver, who remains in hospital but haven't ruled out charges.
Look, we're doing a thorough investigation, as you can imagine, into this matter. We haven't been able to speak to everybody that we would like to at this point in time.
A 60km/h speed limit for trucks was one of several changes made in the wake of previous crashes. But there's still no movement on another key coronial recommendation.
We believe this highlights again the need to look at the provision of a third safety ramp between the current one and the intersection.
The government says it will look again, but
it's a very complex and tight section right down at the bottom of the freeway.
And you don't want to introduce an arrestor bed in such a way that might actually make the situation worse rather than better.
Another possible solution, a freight bypass around the hills, is being investigated, with the results of a study due later this year. Ethan Ricks, ABC News. An all too familiar clean-up at Adelaide's most notorious intersection. A truck spewing smoke flies down the southeastern freeway, crashing into multiple cars and a bus. 9 people were hurt. Emergency services astonished to find most had only minor injuries.
It's absolutely miraculous that nobody was seriously injured or killed in that collision.
Adelaide.
And we'll leave that report there as we will keep updating you on finding out what actually really happened, and we'll follow up that story. But right now we'll go to our next news, which is about the charges that have been dropped against the teen who was accused of murder.
Glenn Wolowitz died after being shot as he opened his front door in June 2021. Police took a full year to make an arrest over the death after scouring CCTV footage from the nearby area. In the end, 6 people were arrested, 5 men and a woman. They are facing charges ranging from murder to being an accessory after the fact of murder to attempting or inciting a robbery or home invasion. Shockingly, the youngest of the group was only 12 at the time of the alleged crime. He's now 13. But today, prosecutors revealed they would not be pursuing the charges against him.
After reviewing additional evidence obtained subsequent to the juvenile's arrest, following consultation with the Chief Crown Prosecutor, homicide detectives and family members of Mr Wolowitz, I've determined that the charges against the 13-year-old juvenile should be discontinued.
So there you go, the 13-year-old is let off the hook while the investigation still continues. Well, Coalition accused of trading up carbon credit contracts and gifting billions to private companies. Here's that report.
The planet needs to get to net zero carbon emissions to stop the worst impacts of climate change. There's only 2 ways there: reduce carbon pollution and create carbon credits to offset the emissions polluters can't eliminate.
So you can't You can't stuff around with this.
It's a loss to the taxpayer, a needless loss to the taxpayer.
Earlier this year, the industry was blindsided after a decision to rip up contracts. Documents obtained through Freedom of Information showed the department was warned of chaos. By planting trees or reducing deforestation, companies create Australian Carbon Credit Units, or ACCUs. They had to be sold to the government at $12 a tonne. But in 2021, the government made a new optional contract. People could sell to the government or on the open market. With more companies driving towards net zero, demand increased and the price spiked to $55.
And this time they're not going to source them at $12, they'll source them at a much higher price. So taxpayers are being slugged for gains that the carbon sellers are getting.
Experts cautioned that decision could cease investment in new projects immediately and for the next 5 years, strand $500 million in projects from Telstra and BHP, and reduce demand for carbon credits.
And this was a disappointing period for the minister, the government and the regulator, and I hope we've all learned some lessons about better process.
Industry leader John.
Well, learning the right lessons about the processes is what it's all about, and hopefully that does happen. And as we know, the climate change and the global warming, there's a lot of debate in that area, and I think I have made my views very clear on that on quite a few occasions, that there are things within our control, there are things beyond our control as well. So we need to be mindful of that as well. While there are things that we can do, nature and God in its own way, there are things that have happened over time, and that's formed or evolved the world into what it is today. Well, rise of TikTok. Now, that is going to be threatening the media giants. As we know, in today's day and age of the social media, look at us, this live show which is coming to you via Facebook and YouTube. A while back, all this was not even possible. So, the rise of social media has made this possible, but there is always all of these platforms vying for that space, vying for that audience. TikTok is on the rise.
In the world of social media, the rise of TikTok is posing a growing threat to Facebook and Instagram's parent company, Meta. It's now prompted developers to make changes to the platforms. Facebook users will soon see a curated newsfeed of suggested content similar to what you would see on TikTok. You'll still be able to see your timeline, but it's also raised concerns that there will be less posts from family and friends and more from advertisers. To explain, I'm joined by Senior Media Lecturer at Swinburne University, Dr. Belinda Barnett. Belinda, thanks so much for your time. Let's just get the basics. It's all social media, but what's the difference between all of these platforms?
Well, there's a lot of differences, I guess, in terms of when you're using the platform. When you open TikTok, what you immediately see is content from all over the world that has been selected for you by an algorithm. It could be from anywhere, basically, and it's curated for you by TikTok, and that algorithm is surprisingly accurate in terms of what you want to see. Whereas when you open Facebook, what you see is posts from your friends and family and people and groups that you follow interspersed with content that the algorithm has recommended. So they're different experiences at the moment.
So what does TikTok have that Facebook is trying to replicate? Because TikTok normally you would think is just a bunch of videos of people mucking around, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely is. But what TikTok has is an enormous growing user base. So although it's still smaller than Facebook, what's happening with the growth of TikTok is that it's eating Facebook's lunch. It's taking all of the particularly the younger users in the 18 to 25-year-old age bracket, and it's attracting them.
When we talk about the demographic of these social media platforms, TikTok is normally associated with Gen Z, so the younger audience. Why is everyone racing to get the eyeballs of young people? Because they make less money than millennials or Gen Y, and they've got less data, don't they?
Well, they don't have less data, they have different data than you or I would have. So they're still attractive to these platforms because they're eyeballs, and perhaps more importantly, going into the future, this is the generation that they want to be investing in, that are going to be spending money.
So is Facebook trying to claw back the younger people or get more younger people onto their platform? If they do that, do they risk losing what they've already got?
Well, what they've already...
Well, what we're looking at Facebook, and I think is, with the trying to get the young ones there is once the young one found that, their parents and grandparents were there on the same platform, they slowly slid away and found other platforms. So sometimes, kids, they want to post their own things in their own manner without being hassled or harassed or being worried about who is seeing those kind of posts. So even today, yes, you would have noticed that in some of the platforms, in some of the social media, the feeds and the posts do not appear as they used to before. You are given a choice to whether want to see more of this kind of post or not, and all kinds of things. Like previously, once everyone's on your Facebook, if you put a post up, everyone got to see that. And that is especially true for marketing, when there are functions and events and people are trying to reach out to many people via the platform. These days, you are not quite sure because you are more and more encouraged to boost your posts, So that's the way things are at the moment. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. India's new president, Ms. Draupadi Murmu, takes oath as the president, followed by a 21-gun salute.
Ms. Draupadi Murmu took oath as the President of India, the highest constitutional post of the country, followed by a 21-gun salute. Murmu was administered the oath of office by Chief Justice of India N.V. Ramana. Former President Ramnath Kovind, outgoing Vice President N. Venkaiah Naidu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Congress President Sonia Gandhi were present for the ceremony. Naveen Patnaik, Chief Minister of President Murmu's home state Odisha, Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla and MPs from all parties were also present, also attended the event. In her speech, the new President of India said, quote, "My election is proof that the poor in India can dream and make them come true. I want to tell the youth, don't just focus on your future but also lay the foundation of the country's future. As President, you have my full support. India is adding new episodes of development in every sphere. India's fight against COVID pandemic has increased its global influence." End quote. Earlier in the day, she visited Rajghat and paid her respects to Mahatma Gandhi. She then met the outgoing President Ramnath Kovind. President-elect Murmu's 64 scripted history after defeating opposition presidential candidate Yashwant Sinha to become the first tribal and second woman to hold the top constitutional post. Odisha's Rairangpur, the hometown of President Murmu, has been in a celebratory mood since her win. People in her village have lined up events to celebrate her oath ceremony.
Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh announces the setting up of Joint Theatre Commands of Tri-Services.
Indian Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has announced the setting up of Joint Theatre Commands of Tri-Services to enhance coordination among armed forces. He was speaking during a program organized by the Jammu Kashmir People's Forum in Jammu to pay tributes to the martyrs of the Indian Armed Forces. In June 2021, the government formed an 8-member panel to fine-tune the joint theatre plans and bring all stakeholders on board, especially the Indian Air Force, for a speedy rollout of the new joint structures. The Indian military's Theatre Command model, a long-awaited reform, will have inbuilt flexibility to fall back on the current command and control structures to deal with any contingency during the transition phase, an official said. Stabilization of theatre commands could take up to 5 years, and it is critical to ensure that there is a mechanism to swiftly return to the pre-theatre command status quo if a crisis unfolds when the restructuring is underway.
India's Neeraj Chopra creates history with a silver medal at the World Athletics Championships 2022.
Star Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra won a historic silver medal at the World Athletics Championships in Oregon, USA on July 23rd. The Tokyo Olympics gold medalist recorded a throw of 88.13 meters in his fourth attempt to claim the second spot. Thus, Chopra is the first Indian to win a silver medal at the World Athletics Championships and the second medalist from the country after Anju Bobby George in 2003. Chopra was trailing Grenada's Anderson Peters at the halfway stage after 3 attempts, as the latter had recorded a 90.21 meters throw in his first attempt itself. However, the Indian held his nerves and made a stupendous throw in his fourth attempt. While Peters finished first with a throw of 90.21 meters, Czech Republic's Jako Potlic finished third with a throw of 88.09 meters, whiskers behind Chopra. India's Rohit Yadav finished 10th in his debut final with a best throw of 78.72 meters. Chopra made 2 fouls in his first attempt and the fifth attempt, but just one good throw was enough to get his name in the record books. Chopra had become a household name last year when he won the gold at Tokyo Olympics with a throw of 87.58 meters in his second attempt, becoming only the second Indian after shooter Abhinav Bindra to win an individual gold medal in Olympics. The javelin thrower from Haryana also became only the second Indian after Norman Pritchard and the first post-independence to win an Olympic medal in athletics.
Bollywood star Gulshan Grover is an evergreen character actor and among the first to cross over from Bollywood to Hollywood. Over the decades of hundreds of roles on the celluloid, Gulshan has created a fan following and an indelible mark. Most recently, Gulshan, aka the Batman of the Indian cinema, launched a men's grooming brand synonymous with his Batman image. Of course, the products are excellent, natural and manufactured by one of the biggest brands in business. Here is an exclusive look into his life, career and the brand of Batman.
Badman. Hi, this is the Badman saying hello to the viewers of Glow TV. TV is glowing, and I'm very happy to be on Glow TV talking about my autobiography Badman and how today Badman is a brand, men's grooming herbal products called Badman. I'm born and raised on the outskirts of Delhi, in a family where, like, biggest problem was economical problems, but that did not let us forget, as my father rightly said, to overcome
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. Sorry about that slight interruption there, a bit of technical problems, but it's been wonderful having your company. 12 degrees and mostly sunny from Brisbane. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. Wonderful to have your company.